Welcome to A Moment of Xen. Time to sit back and relax as model, actress, mentor, and supermom Xen Sams takes you on a sexy and wild ride, covering the latest in film, fashion, pop culture, cryptocurrency, fintech, cannabis, and entertainment from the millennial mom's perspective. Here's your host, Xen Sams.
Welcome back, beautiful New York tri-state area and beyond. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Xen Sams, celebrating 6 years on the incredible airwaves, marking this episode 253. Up next, right here on A Moment of Xen in the Elevating Experiences series brought to you by MTK Group New York. Today, I'm joined by Nile Lundgren, luxury real estate expert, top producer at SERHANT, and cast member on Netflix's Owning Manhattan. We're diving into high stakes, higher standards, inside the world of luxury deals, media pressure, and elite client expectations. A conversation about operating under scrutiny, building trust at the top, and how high-pressure deal-making translates both on and off screen. In our Clean Collective series brought to you by Society Brands and Crunchy, a clean beauty brand redefining transparency and safety in skincare. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Federica Amati, head nutritionist at Zoe, PhD in clinical medicine research from Imperial College London, and a public health expert and best-selling author. We're chatting women's health reimagined, gut science, menopause, and the truth about ultra-processed foods. A conversation you want to tune in for about misinformation, microbiome science, and how nutrition and clean living intersect with long-term health. In our Lifted by Science series, brought to you by CO2 Lift, today I'm joined by Kate Cunningham Jeffrey. She's a board-certified physician's associate with nearly 2 decades of clinical experience, founder of Pretty Please Aesthetics and Injected Training Academy. She's a national trainer and key opinion leader for leading aesthetic brands and specializes in regenerative aesthetics and facial balancing. Tonight, we're exploring the oxygen revolution, how CO2 Lift is redefining skin health through science, breaking down the physiology, the WOR effect, and how evidence-based innovation is changing aesthetics outcomes. In the Right Brain series brought to you by the Melillo Centers and the Right Brain podcast, where neuroscience, creativity, and family life intersect. Today, we're joined by Bradley Snedeker, actor, rancher, and father, alongside our regular co-contributors, Dr. Robert Melillo and Ellis Melillo, co-founders of the Right Brain podcast. Our conversation today centers on when the script changes, fatherhood, autism, and the courage to rewrite the story, an honest dialogue about diagnoses, identity, neurodiversity, and navigating creativity inside real family life. Stay tuned for Bradley, Dr. Melillo, and Ellis up next. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Xen is brought to you by Your Home TV with Kathy Ireland and their channel partners. Head to yourhometv.com for free, family-friendly programming, streaming 24/7.
The Kelly Williams Show is brought to you by Serendipity Yacht Cruises and Events. Tune in and turn on your happy. Kelly Williams is full of energy and incredible guests. Watch her anytime, free programming on Your Home TV network, and do follow her on social media for a chance to win monthly prizes. Check out The Kelly Williams Show on yourhometv.com.
Tune in to A Moment of Xen, Saturday nights from 9 to 10 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area, New York City, and beyond. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Xen Sams. Welcome back to the Right Brain segment brought to you by the Melillo Centers. Joining us, as always, is our regular co-contributor, Dr. Robert Melillo, world-renowned researcher and clinician in neuroscience, specializing in autism, and author of the New York Times bestselling book, Disconnected Kids. We're also joined by singer-songwriter and creative Ellis Melillo, co-founder of the Right Brain podcast, who brings lived experience as someone who grew up navigating a right brain dominant mind. And today, we're joined by actor, rancher, and father, Bradley Snedeker. Bradley is a classically trained actor whose career spans stage, film, and TV. But today, he joins us as a father navigating an autism diagnosis within a creative household while balancing public life and living deeply, privately, and responsibly. Now, when the script changes, fatherhood, autism, and the courage to rewrite the story truly matters. It's not a conversation about fame. It's about what happens when the life you expected, the script you thought you were following, is rewritten by a diagnosis you didn't plan for. And according to the CDC, 1 in 36 children in the United States is diagnosed with autism. And while early diagnoses can dramatically improve outcomes, the emotional, relational, and identity impact on families is rarely discussed with honesty. Today, we're going to talk about the moment of diagnosis, the emotional and neurological reckoning that follows, how creative parents process uncertainty differently, and how growth happens not just in children, but across entire families. Welcome to the show, superstars.
Hey, thank you for having us.
Happy to be here.
Bradley, I'm so excited to have you here. Dr. Melillo and Ellis, welcome back. So, Bradley, I'm going to dive right in. Long before a diagnosis, many parents describe a quiet internal knowing, something they feel before they can name it, right? So can you take us back to that period before the diagnosis and share what you were noticing, sensing, and wrestling with internally as a father?
I think I'm the odd man out on that because I did not see anything wrong before he was diagnosed. Of course, I was going into fatherhood completely blind like all of us are, so I didn't know what to expect. The way I grew up, I was never around babies to begin with. He was always laughing. My son walked at a very early age, much earlier than most do. So I, at the time, was thinking that my son was above average, was doing just fine. It wasn't until people at the park or certain friends would start to point out something like, hey, I don't think that's normal. Fear started to creep in and pretty much consume me for that matter. But of course, I do what most people would do, is just go straight into denial, and denied everything until we had actual doctors say, we need to have him checked for this. This is not okay.
This is why I want to bring Dr. Melillo in.
Yeah, but I want to go back to when Bradley and I first met, and I was really impressed by him from the beginning, both he and his wife, his wife is also an incredibly talented actor, and who really gave up a lot of her career to work with her son. And they're both incredibly dedicated parents. I work with so many parents throughout the years, and Bradley especially he was ready to jump in and do everything. But as I was really describing a lot of what was happening in their child's brain, which again, they hadn't really been explained to as much, we were talking about right brain, left brain, and we were talking about our podcast. And and his wife looked at him and said, oh my God, you are fitting that right brain, and you've had a lot of these. So I really want to dive into him and really, obviously you're an incredibly talented actor and you have this right brain creativity, but I know you've listened to some of the things that we've talked about in this podcast and other actors that we've had on. Mm-hmm. How does that relate to you as far as, your history growing up, any challenges, from a time learning disabilities or issues, or when did your creative journey start?
My entire childhood, the only reason I survived it was through my creativity. Growing up, especially when you get to puberty and whatnot, adolescence, I wish that I had your book back then or knew what to look for. I was riddled with anxiety. I could not be in any social situations. I would literally spend all my days alone, creating just, scenarios in my head about how my life should be, how I want my life to be, and just basically playing out fantasies in my head day after day after day after day. I didn't know what else to do. I've never been able to sit still. That's one of the things my son and I have in common. But, growing up, when you live like that, eventually you're going to look for a release in any which way you can. And I'm going to be completely honest on this podcast. I developed an enormous drug habit just to get through it, because that's the only thing that settled me down. That's the only thing that calmed me down. That's the only thing that allowed me to look into a mirror and say, that's an okay guy. I can live with this guy. This is fun. So fast forward to what the original question, I think half the reason that I didn't see any signs when my son was first born or even the months after is because I was newly sober. When he was born, wife and I sat down, we made a decision. I'm not going to raise my child in the same kind of household I grew up in. So I had to get clean. I had to get sober, been that way ever since. So I was so focused on, what does a good father do? Spend time with this kid. I wasn't looking out for anything wrong. I was just trying to build the perfect life for him. And I think in doing that, especially when you do get sober, you're starting right at the point where you started using drugs in the first place. So all my fears, all my anxiety, all my depression came rushing back tenfold. So that, combined with having to raise a child, the only thing I was focused on was making sure my son's laughing, making sure he's got his toys, making sure we're going to the park, every day, just doing as many physical activities as we can, as much fun as we can. I wasn't really in the mindset of thinking, is he developing naturally?
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, that's pretty deep, and that explains a ton.
Yeah, that does. I I thought it was interesting that you said, like, when you were growing up that you were riddled with anxiety and couldn't be in social situations, because I feel very similar to that, but I feel like people think I'm a very outgoing person, which I can be.
Mm-hmm.
But I was wondering what you thought about the fact that, because I did a similar thing, like going into a performance career, when like being around other people can just make you feel so much anxiety, and yet that's what you choose to do every day.
Well, with that, when you do perform, because I'm also, even though the majority of my career is like voiceovers and TV, I am an absolute lover of the stage. I will take any opportunity to get on stage and perform. And I think the reason that I love it so much, aside from the actual art form itself, when you overcome your anxiety, it's the ultimate rush. When you do something that you're most afraid to do, when you're done doing it, it's a high like no other. And it's safe. It's not self-destructive. So another thing, growing up, I was also an adrenaline junkie. I don't know how to sit still and just watch TV. I don't know how to do that. I know how to do the most dangerous thing possible. I know how to break bones. I know how to tear ligaments. I'm really good at that. Unfortunately, my son also inherited that from me. Oh, man. But so I'm always, performing in front of people. Creatively, you can lose yourself in it. It's not you.
Yeah.
You can bring forth this whole creativity that you built up into your mind and just express it. Win, lose, or draw, it doesn't matter. Even though you're in front of however many thousands of people, it's still an escape for me. It's still a way to just get lost in creativity as opposed to being lost in my own skin.
Yeah, that makes 100% makes sense to me. So I get that very much. I can relate to that.
Awesome. Yeah. We have something in common. I like that.
It's interesting because fear really is often shaped by misinformation. So I think, the fact that you're a father, what parents, mothers, fathers frequently discover is that autism isn't a loss of connection. It's just a different pathway to it.
Exactly.
But probably in retrospect, this has helped you with your own recovery, right? Navigating your son's diagnosis and really reflecting internally, because diagnosis doesn't just affect the child, it reorganizes an entire household. So back to almost what Dr. Melillo asked you at the beginning, but keeping your right brain dominant mind, at the forefront of this conversation. How did your son's diagnosis change the way you and your wife approached each other, parenting, decisions, routines, and even expectations as a family?
Oh, that's a good question. I'll say one thing to any married couple that's out there with a child that's recently diagnosed. It's the hardest thing to do, but stay on each other's side. When we did finally get the diagnosis, of course, you're going to go through your denial stage. It's natural. No, these doctors are wrong. He's fine, this and that. And as time progresses, you get to the acceptance stage. But with that comes the guilt. And you feel like a failure, not only to your son, but also to your wife. So it's very easy to fall into a state of self-loathing. And it's also with the struggles that come with it. And I'm sure that's true for any parent, regardless of diagnosis. You get frustrated and you start to blame the other person left and right. And that just leads to ultimate destruction. But when we did get on the same page, it became a really beautiful thing. My wife is in charge of all the technicalities, finding the right schools, finding the right BIs, finding the right doctors. She's brilliant at that. I couldn't have asked for a better mother. With me, I'm the more hands-on. I'm the one who had a stack of books yay high and read through them, writing down, taking notes on everything I'm supposed to do, and just being as creative as possible with it. There was one book that said, find different avenues of communication. Great. I'm going to start learning sign language so I can teach him. The only thing is, once he starts to recognize what the sign is, he has to say it. He can't sign it back. He has to say it. Well, now he's fluent in well over 200 words. I can actually sign a complete sentence and he will, give or take, repeat the entire thing back. So good days or bad days, as long as you both, the husband and wife recognize that we're both on the same side, we both want to do what's right with the child, you're going to be all right. You're going to be just fine.
Wow. I mean, sobriety is one accomplishment, but the role that you stepped into is whole new level. I almost feel like in listening to your story that your son is your angel because it helped you regulate more than you can even imagine.
I tell him every day not every day, but he's the only reason I'm alive right now.
Yeah, I'm like getting teary-eyed. No, I could feel that, and it's interesting because now that you have structure and support, I mean, families often underestimate that. And you said now that, when you and your wife got on the same page, that changed the dynamic because families really do. And I'm going to say this all the time. They underestimate how much structure and predictability support regulation, right? It's not just for children, but for parents too. So what you're describing, getting on the same page really reflects a systems level shift, not just, not just addressing it from a bird's eye view. You really have to change patterns and behaviors there.
Always. And it's a constant thing. I'm always growing towards it. It doesn't ever stop.
Dr. Melillo?
Yeah. So, we've interviewed a lot of different people from creative backgrounds, and it's really fascinating because none of them have actually, many of them talk about their journey and how they just were creative from the start. Like they could dance well, or they could make up games, or they immediately started singing. I know Ellis, she came out of the womb literally singing, right? But none of them have said that the creativity really came about as a way of kind of protecting themselves. That was really fascinating that you said that because, but there was probably, I'm sure, a part of you, or I'd like to know, and I know you're a modest guy, but being honest, like, did you realize early on too, like, I'm pretty good at this. Like I can, not only am I doing this as a way of, of protecting myself, but I am actually pretty good at this. And not only is it an escape for me, but I think I could really do this.
Oh, yeah. No, that came very, very early on, especially with writing, because I'm also a published author. Just don't get me wrong. I didn't make any money off of it, maybe enough to make buy a Big Mac. But I just wanted to see if I could actually have somebody buy my writing. But even at a very young age, being able to write anything creatively, like when you're in elementary school and your teacher says, write a 1-page story. No, I did a 20-page story. And actually she was so blown away. She's like, can I send this to people? Yeah, you can send it wherever. I'm 5 years old. I don't care what you do. But, when it comes to performance wise, my parents always reminded me how they actually got frustrated with it, but they could put on one movie that I would sit down and watch. And next thing I know, I have 90% of it memorized. I could recite the entire thing. So there were things like that. So yeah, I definitely did know my creative side was my strongest side. And later on in life, it was even proven more so because you look at my report card, it would be all D's and F's except for literature, except for art, except for history. Those are the only things I excelled at. Everything else, I could not do it. I would have migraines trying to solve simple math problems. For the life of me, I could not do that.
Yeah. And that's one of the things we try to highlight is that there is a certain level of genius that is the foundation of the disability, the anxiety, the fear, all of that is related to that unique gift that you have, but that affects academics and learning and more traditional measures, which, and all of that, fuels that underlying, that anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much so. And it got to the point to where it was almost crippling.
Yeah, I can relate to that heavily. And it's funny because my dad always says, like, the more that you kind of work on all of those things that are your gifts, the more it can bring up all of those anxieties and stuff because you're overworking your right brain. So it's like, even though I don't know, I feel like in the times where I'm like my most creative and I'm writing all the time and everything, then I'll have like crash moments where I get really depressed and have anxiety and OCD attacks and things like that because I'm not, balancing it out. But
still to this day, that happens to me all the time.
Really?
I will get trapped in my head. I will be pacing my home back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until it hits me. I'm like, why am I shaking? Why is my heart, going so fast? I need to get outside. I need to go relax, do something. I need to get back to reality, because being stuck in your head, it's a gift sometimes because you get a lot of great ideas and a lot of great inspiration, but it can also be your ultimate curse. You get trapped in there too long, the darkness is going to take over.
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah, especially like you said, you're someone that daydreams a lot. That's where I live most of my days. Your daydreams can get dark sometimes, but yeah, I can relate to that a lot. As a creative person yourself, how did parenting a neurodivergent child change the way you listen, slow down, or connect?
Connection between my son and I, I'm very grateful to this. I thank God every day. Him and I have a very, very, very strong relationship. Even at 15, and most 15-year-olds don't want to be around their parents anymore. So I'm very grateful that, my kid and I, we're still locked at the hip. Patience and slowing down is still a struggle for me. I remind myself, because I don't know if I mentioned it before or not, but my son with his diagnosis, one of the things that fascinates me about him is the opposite of what's expected in a child. For example, he can't tie his shoes, but I dare you, put a calculus problem in front of him. Watch how quickly he solves it. And it blows my mind. And his poetry is off the hook. Like when he writes stuff and brings it home from school, I'm almost in tears. It blows me away so much. So the connection part is easy. Slowing down and reminding myself that he's a genius who can't even hold a conversation and how frustrating that must be. I really have to take a step back, put myself in his mindset, because the fact that he's still such a happy young man blows my mind. To be able to be trapped in your body, have thoughts that are genius level and not be able to come up to me and express them, that amount of frustration, I can't even fathom. So slowing down is still a process, but when he does have meltdowns, much like I did, I'd love to say that I'm that perfect dad that just sits him down and says, all right, let's talk this through. But a lot of times I lose my temper, have to regain myself, apologize and say, you know what, let's go do something active. Let's go do something fun. Let's really burn this out. That's where the creative side comes in the best, because I can, I've never been one of these dads that just wants to sit down on the couch. I still can't sit down for very long. So I'll be like, you know what, we're going to drive an hour up to the mountains and we're going to hike for 2 hours. And then we're going to see if we can find a waterfall. And I don't care how cold it is. Let's just jump in. Let's just do something stupid and crazy to get our minds off of this and get out of this mindset. So
that's beautiful.
And now you also lead a public life to some extent, and obviously your child deserves privacy, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you personally navigate advocacy and awareness and protecting your son's autonomy, who is not a very social person, as you said, especially in a culture that often overshares?
By acting in opposition to society and to culture. I do not do the social media thing. I have absolutely no desire to post how I'm feeling, what's new in my life, or what just happened. And I also make sure to include my son in any decisions. Like before this interview, the first thing I asked him, are you comfortable with me talking about you? He said, yes, no problem. Okay, great. I've got your permission. Now I can do it. Because when it comes to me, I'm an open book, because one of the things, especially in sobriety earlier on, is if someone asks for help, you give it. So I'm very open about the struggles that I went through, because if there's one guy out there that went through the exact same thing and he gets a hold of me and says, hey, can you help me out through this? Absolutely, I can. But keeping private is very important to the extent that I do not relate to, or I do not express anything until I have a specific reason to. Like, especially with, when I'm on set or whether I'm recording or whatnot, and people want to interview me, great, let's stick to the subject. If you want to get personal, we could talk about that. But my son is very much like me, to where he even says I'm an open book. I remember when we were at the Melillo Center, there was a mother who came in who had never done letterboard communication with her son. She wasn't sure it worked. And I asked Tristan, hey, is it okay? Do you want to talk to this woman? She's like, yes, absolutely. And the woman just asked a very simple question: how are you? To which my son replied, better than you can imagine. And trust me, your son will be fine. And she just
Oh my God.
She just started crying right there. So privacy is very important. I have no desire whatsoever to be in the public eye. But if someone contacts me and wants help, you always give it.
Wow, Bradley, that boundary is so essential, right? Advocacy doesn't require exposure.
Right.
And research really does support that. It increasingly supports the long-term psychological benefits of preserving a child's dignity and agency. But the fact that you're asking him for his authority before you're coming on speaks volumes, because whether they're minors or whether they're adults, that's just basic respect, right?
That, and the fact that one of the things that I get really frustrated with society when it comes to their views on autism is they forget that my son is smarter than me. His IQ is beyond mine. So yes, he's still 15. Yes, he's going to do what daddy tells him. I don't care. Like, I'm very old school that way. But I will speak to him as an adult, as an equal, as somebody who is that brilliant. And I think a lot of people forget to do that. They look at my son, they're like, oh my God, are you okay? How are you? How was your day? Why are you talking to him like this? Speak to him like an adult. Trust me, he knows everything.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's one of the things that is that I'm very passionate, especially about the nonverbal kids, and I always talk about how they are geniuses beyond geniuses.
yeah.
And yet they are often treated like they don't even know one letter. And it's so hard. I've had somebody on social media say to me, how would they actually learn and know this stuff? Like they don't understand it. But, I've spent my career trying to understand the neuroscience. And that's something that you and I have talked a lot about.
Mm-hmm.
And really, I try to really explain it in a way, just like we're talking about your genius in one way, your son's genius in his way, which is classic of autism. How important do you think it is to really, speak to people about the root cause and the actual neuroscience under it, which is what most parents, don't really get. And we really talked a lot. How did that help you?
Well, after reading your book and definitely meeting with you and everybody that works at the Melillo Center, I will say that it makes absolute perfect sense. And again, I wish I was somebody that had this much younger. I wish we would have started this when Tristan was a lot younger. But also, I think parents are so focused, and maybe I'm wrong in this is just my opinion, but parents are so focused on trying to make their child as normal as possible. And I'm at the opposite end. That's the last thing I want my son to be. I do not want him to fit in with society. I want him to be the odd man out. And I tell him this almost all the time, especially when he's frustrated and trapped in that dark place. Normal minds never change the world. They just don't. The exceptional ones do. Be the odd man out. It's okay. It's okay to be left side dominant. Yes, I want my son to have full control of his body. Yes, I would love nothing more for him just to wake up and come out of his room and say, good morning, Dad. How are you? How did you sleep? I'd be blown out of the water. But every day, this kid fascinates me one way or another. I'll give you an example. When he was very, very young, the first thing when he's first diagnosed, the doctor will tell you, what kind of things is he interested in? And once you tell him that, they're like, all right, put that object or that toy in some place that he can't go to try to get him to communicate with you or express that he wants to go get it. I'm like, cool, that makes perfect sense. So I took his toy, I hid it way on the top shelf. 20 minutes later, I'm hearing all this rustling and all this commotion. I come out to the living room. He's building a staircase up to it with all these blocks and chairs, and he's just backing it and trying to get to it. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, how amazing is this? Think of that thought process. I would never be able to do that. I'd be the first one to go, Mom, can you please help me? He's like, no, I can do this myself. So for any parent who's struggling or doesn't believe, try it first before you knock it. And one of the things that you sold me on is how long it takes to actually get there. Be patient. Trust the process. Obviously, trust somebody who's been specializing in this field for how many years was it now? Over 20 years?
35.
Yeah. So,
but I look younger. I'm starting at a very young age.
You look fantastic. You look great.
Bradley, I have a quick question for you. So your son is currently 15.
Yeah.
He has a vocabulary of about 200 words. He is obviously verbal, but limited. So at what age did he start to go from nonverbal to verbal? And did you notice that transition?
Like I said, we're going to go ahead and call him 90% nonverbal. His favorite word still to this day is no. No, thank you. Every time we're driving to the doctors, no, all done. But we started to notice, we started to have faith that he can have a breakthrough when he would communicate, when it's something, it had to be something he really didn't want. And he would scream out, no, please, no, daddy, no, stuff like that. I was like, okay, something's in there. Something's registering, and I think because it was something he didn't want or something he was afraid, when you have that instinct hit you, all of a sudden something connects right away and you're able to say it. So, and I've spoken to Dr. Melillo with that. These little signs let me know that it's possible. It's there. There's something in there that is working just fine. So we just have to take a different angle to get him to that point.
Wow.
Did that answer it? Or
Yeah, no, it did. I was just
talk about the neuroscience of that, saying no or being afraid or activating a lot of negative emotions or withdrawal behaviors or right brain function. So that activates the right brain. And that's actually the reason why they can't speak. It's not because the left brain is an issue or they don't have the words. So in doing that, you're activating it. And again, he's really lucky because he's got a right brain dad. So you do right brain things with him all the time just because that's who you are. Mm-hmm. And so, it's really, it's pretty cool to understand also the neuroscience of this.
Well, that wraps up an incredible segment right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. That was the Right Brain segment brought to you by the Melillo Centers. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Xen is brought to you by the Melillo Method Centers, where hope truly lives, specializing in ADHD, dyslexia, autism, and other neurological challenges. Dr. Robert Melillo and his team create personalized treatment plans that go beyond symptom management. Using advanced neuroscience, they help children and adults reach their fullest potential. Families worldwide choose the Melillo Method for answers and results. Begin your journey to better brain health at drrobertmelillo.com.
Welcome back, New York tri-state area and beyond. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to Elevating Experiences series brought to you by MTK New York, where we explore access, excellence, and the people who operate at the highest level of intentional living. And today we're talking about a world where pressure is built into the price tag, luxury real estate at the elite level, and what happens when business, branding, and visibility collide. Because luxury doesn't follow the same rules as the broader housing market. In Manhattan, sales above 10 million continue to outperform the rest of the market. According to multiple luxury market reports, trophy properties have seen shorter days on market, stronger cash participation, and global buyer competition, even during periods of economic uncertainty. And in South Florida, the ultra luxury segment, homes priced 5, 10, and even 20 million has become one of the most active luxury corridors in the country, driven by wealth migration, lifestyle repositioning, and global visibility. And in recent years, South Florida has consistently ranked among the top US markets for over $10 million residential sales, rivaling New York and Los Angeles. So when you're operating in both New York and Miami, you're not just selling real estate. You're navigating wealth, psychology, discretion, expectation management, and increasingly public perception, which brings me to today's guest. My guest is Nile Lundgren. He's a luxury leading real estate expert and cast member on Netflix's Owning Manhattan. He's closed over 500 million in luxury sales across New York City and South Florida, and is a top producer at SERHANT, where he specializes in high-end luxury and new development, speaking directly into my narrative today. He's known for precision negotiation. If you watch the show, it comes off very clear. Long-term client strategy. He's really engaged in that roadmap and performing under pressure, which we've seen him do over and over again. And beyond real estate, he's also a public speaker, Sell It coach, podcast and TikTok live host. The list goes on and on. Nile, welcome to the show, superstar.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very honored to be here.
Okay, so I'm going to dive right into it. This isn't a volume business. It's a reputation business, and longevity usually starts with intention. So what originally inspired your path into luxury real estate? And was there a moment when you realized this wasn't just a career choice, but really a long-term identity you were willing to basically build under pressure, because that's what you're doing?
Yeah. And, there's no better place in the world than to do it in New York City. This is where you want to build your dreams. If you have a dream, you got to come to New York City. I did that. I only had about $200 to my name. I didn't even know what I was going to do. I just thought I was going to be on television one day. And I was found by a gentleman who owned many buildings. And he said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm playing video games." He's like, "Do you know people with good credit?" And I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Great. You got a job working with me." And I didn't even know when I was going to be a luxury broker, but I got into the business and I just put one foot in front of the other. And there was a great story where I had a client where I was going to pitch him, and I wasn't wearing the nicest suit, and I didn't get the listing. And I was really good friends with him. I actually went to college with him, and he said, "Look, you need to dress the part." And from that moment, I said, I'm gonna wear a suit and tie every single day. I found a fashion mentor. I became a fan of all things luxury, from cars to watches to jewelry to jets to penthouses to double lots, west facing sunset views, you name it. And I became a student over many years. And it's not like I'm just on Netflix now and it's all good. I've been doing this for 19 years. So it's been quite a process, and luxury has been something that I've adopted, and it's been working out pretty well for me.
Wow, that makes so much sense, because purpose is what carries people through high stakes environments. And it sounds like
Yes.
you found your purpose. So of all the luxury deals you've done, right, there's been many, which sale stands out as your most impressive or challenging? And what did it teach you about operating at the highest level?
My biggest deal that I would say I'm most proud of on the luxury level was when I was in New York during COVID. My client called me and said, "Look, I want to buy down in Miami." And he was living in a condo. I have a place for his listed for $27 million right now. And we flew down. He wanted to live in a condo. And I said, "Look, condos are for New York. If you're going to be in South Florida, you should have your own house, right, with your own land. And it potentially should have a sunset view, because those are very rare." And we showed him a couple condos, and then I was able to bring him to a beautiful property, 2120 Bay Avenue on Sunset Island 4, west facing, double lot, 218 feet of linear frontage, sunsets to die for, super incredible. I sold it to him for $18 million. Now, that's not the end of the story. I sold it to him, but then I monitored the market, and he's one of my best friends. So I spent time at the property. I was having more real estate conversations because I had just done that deal. And 14 months later, we decided to just see if we could flip it. He's like, "You know what? I think I might be at a point where I want to flip it." I'm like, "Okay, I think it's a good time. Let's see what I can do." I set up 7 appointments in the day, and the last appointment, the guy came through. I think we had like 3 offers that day in like the high 20s, 28 million, 29 million.
Wow.
And I was able to secure a deal for $34 million Swear to God, in 14 months. So my client bought this property in South Florida and then just held onto it for 14 months and made $14 million. That's $1 million a month.
Okay, well,
It's crazy.
that's the nuance people miss. Luxury success is quiet, calculated, and deeply strategic. You proved my point. Wow. But handling drama and high net worth pressure, let's talk about that. Let's talk about something rarely discussed openly in luxury markets, the emotional regulation. Ultra high net worth clients are decisive, they're powerful, and often emotionally invested. And when millions or tens of millions of dollars are involved, well, pressure is amplified. So, how do you personally handle pressure and conflict or drama when reputations and relationships and significant capital are on the line?
Luckily, I was taught by a number of really great mentors. And when there's money on the line and when there's emotions on the line, the most important thing for any real estate agent or any person who's selling to super luxury is to remain calm. There's an emotional roller coaster that people go through when they're buying and selling real estate. Your job is to not get on the roller coaster with those people. You have to stand from the side and let them go through it and remain calm. No hard sells, just education, pros, cons, less. The best salesman says less. You have to be able to emotionally regulate what's going on inside. Yeah, that $34 million deal, the client said to me, cancel the deal. I don't want to do it anymore. I think I can get more money. And he's like, I know this is a lot of money and you're probably going to lose a lot of money, but I need you to actually do it. And I said to the client, I said, look, if you're asking me to do it, I'm going to do it without hesitation. And it's not about the money. It's about representing you and your interests. If you think about the money, I think that's really where it screws you up. It's about the deal. It's about the client. It's about the situation and how to stay emotionally regulated to get that deal done so that your client is happy. Once your client's happy, then you do another deal with them and then 2 deals with his friends and then his daughter. And then, it spirals from there. So I have a very long-term thinking approach to how I do real estate and specifically luxury real estate, because a lot of these guys who I'm talking about doing deals with, these are people that I met 10 years ago and I've been nurturing the relationship over time until it comes, a point where you get to start reaping what you've been, sowing.
Yeah, 100%. So let's talk about the off-screen versus on-screen luxury reality, because reality television gives viewers a glimpse into luxury, but it also compresses timelines and heightens emotion, right? What it doesn't change is the stakes. And today, media exposure has become part of the luxury ecosystem itself. So how does the reality of luxury deal making differ from what viewers see on Owning Manhattan? And where does the show actually reflect the real pressure of high-end real estate?
Well, I think the show does a great job of reflecting high-end real estate because that's what we do. And there's a lot of pressure, especially working with Ryan. I think if you were at a normal company where the CEO wasn't a total crazy person trying to build the greatest real estate company in the history of the planet, you might be able to take it easy a little bit. But Ryan is on a goal. He is on a mission. He has a goal to be the best and to win. And it's very exciting to work with somebody like that. It's also very tiring, right? We are constantly in a pressure cooker. Ryan has said publicly, this is the Hunger Games of real estate. So to answer the question, it's like we have the Hunger Games of real estate, which means Ryan is not necessarily just, oh, you're on the television show, I'm going to make it easy for you. Here's a listing. Here's this. Go. It's not like that. You have to really perform at a high level when there's cameras on, which is the hardest part because you have to be present in the moment when they're filming, but then you have to plan what the filming is, meaning, do you have business? I remember in season 1, I filmed probably 5 straight days. And the last 2 days were basically, 10 hours each. And at the end of the day, it was like a Friday afternoon. I'm like, I'm so tired. I'm dying. And my producer's like, so what new listings did you get this week? And I was like, what? I was like, I was filming with you the whole time. They're like, wait, you didn't get any more listings? We have to film you on Monday. We need more inventory. And I remember when they said that to me, I'm like, this is insane. I have to not only perform, take away from my actual business, but then do this and then go get more business. So, and if you don't get it, then you're not going to be on the show, right? So that's where the pressure comes in, is like you have to perform, because you're producing your own moments on the show, meaning you're putting it all together. You're getting people to sign to get, the Netflix release to get in the building. So there's like a lot of management there. Then you have to manage your client, and then you have to go show the property and close. And that's all on camera. I've been on other reality TV shows. I was on a Bravo show called Camp Getaway. It's a lot to put your life out there and to be vulnerable in front of the cameras. But at the same time, I've done it before, and this is something I'm used to. So I actually perform better in the high pressure situation. So if Ryan says, hey, go sell a $250 million penthouse, I'm like, game on. It's the same process if it was 250,000 for me or 25 million. I don't really worry about the numbers. I worry about the process. And I think that's what helps me in the show. And I think stand out not only on the show, but, at the company because of, how I'm able to get these deals done.
Wow. Well, you got your hands full and you got your work cut out for you. And what you said is very true. It resonates. The edit may change, but the expectations don't, right? Meaning whether you're in front of the camera or not, you still gotta bring it home in every sense of the word. And that is a lot of pressure. So let's chat about how visibility changes luxury business. So we're now living in a visibility economy where perception, personal brand, and access are intertwined. So for luxury professionals, media exposure can accelerate trust, right? But it also raises the bar. How has being part of a Netflix series changed your life, from the caliber of clients you attract to how people perceive your role in luxury spaces?
I think the caliber of clients is definitely going up. I would say that when you are on a television show, Netflix is obviously at the top, and I'm very grateful to be there. And you're in luxury real estate. You have to understand that you don't need to build as much rapport as you used to. When I was, before Ryan, I worked in the business for many years, and I would have to go in, and every time I would go in, I'd have to present, this is who I am. This is how many deals I've done. This is how many years I've been in the business. Now it's a lot different. I don't have to go in and say that 5 to 10 minute, this is who I am pitch. I already have pre-built in rapport. So when I walk into that meeting, they already understand what the program is. They know who I am. They've seen me live on television. They've seen me on YouTube. They've seen me on TikTok, Instagram, X, podcast, you name it. And then, the kids saw me on TikTok, and the mom saw me on Netflix. And then the dad saw me on Fox Business, for example. And then they're all sitting around a table together, and they're like, that Nile guy, right? So it's about creating that ecosystem. And I think the biggest thing for me that I've recognized from being on the show is just the fact that rapport is something that I was always really, really good at building rapport. My name is Nile. So I'd always say my name is Nile, like the river. And I'd always get people to laugh. And that was like my main hook was Nile, like the river. And I'd build rapport off of there. And then I'd go into my experience. Now I just walk in. I'm like, how can I help you? They already know. And I get right to business. I show them my expertise right off the bat, show them where the value comes from, and you go.
So you see, but you put in the work, those 10, 20 hours of filming, and that saved you a whole introduction and pitch because it balances out. Now let's talk about the 5-year vision. So interestingly enough, our elevating experiences segment brought to you by MTK New York, their philosophy really comes into play: intentional elevation. Because true luxury isn't about chasing the next deal. It's about legacy and alignment and scale with purpose. So when you look 5 years ahead, what does success look like for you now? Expansion, legacy building, new verticals, or redefining your role in the luxury ecosystem? Is there something that you are focusing on more versus the other?
I mean, you just said 3 different things, and I'm working on each different one of those pillars. So let's just talk about the pillars. So the first pillar that I could work with people on is real estate, buying or selling luxury real estate or new developments. That's the first pillar, and that's always going to be my first pillar. From there, though, I have different I guess, verticals that I'm working on. So for example, I'm releasing a course in the next month, which is going to be based around all of my personal sales experiences and tactics and techniques and how I was able to plan for the long term to put myself in a position to even be working with Ryan to get myself onto the show. And then the third vertical is the public speaking. And that's something I've been really working on and have had a number of really good opportunities in the past. And I have a couple keynotes coming up. I'm going to Miami next week to go speak on a panel on a yacht. So a lot of really amazing things that are happening from there. But I think, and if you're talking about the 5-year plan, I'm engaged, love to be married, love to have a child. That's something that's very, very important to me. And then also with the money that I should be making from brokerage and all the other verticals, my goal is to develop single family mansions down in Miami. So that's another goal of mine, is to become a developer. When you control the market, okay, as a developer, then you get to hire whatever real estate agent that you want. So I'm going to be the developer, and then also I'm going to hire myself to sell it, so I make money on all aspects of it. So
You're quite entrepreneurial, Nile. I mean, you have it all mapped out.
That's where I'm going. That's what I'm growing. Fully integrated system. But I've been putting it all together for many, many years, and now I'm getting closer and closer. And my mentor always said to me, Nile, just be aggressively patient. Be aggressive every single day, push every single, piece or ball forward, but also, be patient. It's going to take time, and that's really important too.
Well, this tells me that you're thinking long term, not transactionally, and I love that. So let's talk about entertainment and visibility and the NYC luxury aspect of it all. So without a doubt, New York remains a global capital of finance and culture and entertainment, and luxury real estate is at the top of that pillar. It's deeply influenced by all that visibility, right? So when you talk about film, TV, celebrity proximity, and cultural relevance, they all shape where ultra luxury buyers want to live and what they're willing to pay a premium for. So from your perspective, how does New York's entertainment and cultural ecosystem influence ultra luxury demand? I mean, beyond square footage and amenities.
Well, I think talk about amenities. You're talking about amenities in a property, but let's talk about the amenities in New York City. And that's why there's global flight here, is because there's so many amenities. If you come to New York, the opportunity for you to get your new business deal just increases by 100-fold, right? I've seen people come here, me included, with not much, but because of the guy I meet on a subway who, hey, nice suit, let me get your card. Boom. Next thing you know, he introduces me to this person. I close this deal. So it's just, I would say the number one thing is that, yes, New York is the real estate capital of the world. It's also an island, right? So it's, Manhattan is an island, so it's scarce, meaning there's only so much more that they can build, right? I was just in Dubai. Dubai is a great city. It's a real estate city. They're building like crazy, but it's just a desert. They just keep building out. New York City, Manhattan particularly, is an island, scarce supply, sort of like Bitcoin. Right. And what happens with assets that are scarce supply? Well, at one point, there's a supply and demand shock, and then the price goes up. Right. And that's why I think people like New York City real estate, because it's a blue chip asset. Yeah, sure. The overall market might go up and down, but New York City in general is a very resilient product, and it can withstand because of the amenities, because of the proximity, because of the density. Those are all reasons why you're able to, experience much faster growth in a city like this. So it might be more expensive. It might be harder to navigate, but it's certainly more worth it in the long run because of these opportunities.
You said it. Now, Miami, without a doubt, has evolved into a global lifestyle capital, blending that wealth migration we talked about earlier and entertainment and international influence, right? But luxury markets mature differently than hype cycles. We know this. Yep. So how do you see Miami's rise as a global luxury and entertainment hub shaping its ultra luxury real estate market? And where do you think that long-term value truly lives?
Well, I think Miami is for certain a global city in a global hub. I would say it's probably one of the best cities in America besides New York. I think Los Angeles has lost a lot of the cachet. It's just not really where it used to be. And then every other city is just not that big. Boston, yeah, sounds good, not that big. Shout out to my people from Boston. But Miami, I think, is so unique because it's the perfect lifestyle. I think more influencers move to Miami, or it's the influencer capital of America right now. I think it was Los Angeles, and people are now moving there. Banks are moving there. Citadel, more infrastructure. Apple. Every week there's something. The F1 race. You name it. You got it there. The water. You could do football games, baseball games. Whatever it is that you want. And that's a little bit more spread out. New York, you could just kind of walk around. But if you have a boat, that's the best way to travel in Miami. I think the one downside of Miami is the overall infrastructure. Miami Beach is not that big. So when you put thousands of people there, it becomes pretty jammed up quickly. So I think with the drone taxis, you know about that? They know about the drone
I heard
taxi?
about that.
That
Sounded
should change
very
everything.
futuristic.
I was just in Dubai and I was at the Museum of the Future, and I saw one of the literal personal drones after I was talking to a robot. Yeah, anyway, so the Museum of the Future is crazy, and it's real. This is happening. Dubai is going to roll it out in 2026. I think there's plans for this Uber helicopter thing, drone helicopter in Florida, either this year or next year. So I think that will solve some of the key infrastructure challenges that Miami is going through with so many people moving there. There's a lot of traffic. So the way that I get around with my friends is via boat, and there's no traffic on the boat.
Wow. Well, that distinction matters because, Miami, that market, it's very unique, but the way you just positioned it, and this is why you're good at what you do, you could sell that dream because sustainability is the ultimate luxury, and both New York and Miami are sustainable markets, right? We talked about that scarcity. Yep. Well, we are at the end of our date, my dear friend. Nile, it was so much fun chatting with you. I'll definitely have you on again. I definitely, we'll meet up for drinks for sure. But we definitely should chat about where your future is with respect to entertainment.
Sounds good. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for having me on.
This has been the Elevating Experiences segment brought to you by MTK New York, where access meets intention and excellence is built, not bought. To follow Nile's work, or you can connect with him directly, you could find him across all platforms at Nile Lundgren. That's NileLundgren, or you could visit NileLundgren.com. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Xen is brought to you by MTK Group New York. Experience travel without limits. MTK Travel Club, part of MTK Group New York, offers exclusive access to private jet travel, 5-star resorts, and unforgettable luxury experience designed around you. From seamless departures to personalized itineraries, we elevate every moment of your journey. MTK Travel Club makes extraordinary travel effortless. Visit mtkgroupny.com today to discover a new level of luxury.
Welcome back, New York City, tri-state area, and beyond. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to the Clean Collective segment brought to you by Society Brands and Crunchy, the clean beauty brand setting a higher standard for ingredient transparency. We talk a lot about what we put on our skin, but science is now confirming that what we put in our bodies matters just as much when it comes to hormones, inflammation, skin health, and aging. Ultra-processed foods, environmental toxins, endocrine disruptors, these don't act in isolation. They accumulate. And for women, that cumulative toxic load can show up as hormonal imbalance, metabolic dysfunction, stubborn skin issues, and harder transitions through pregnancy and even menopause. Today, we're connecting the dots inside the body and out with our incredible expert on the microphone, Dr. Federica Amati. She is the head nutritionist at Zoe, the nutrition science company leading the gut health revolution. She holds a PhD in clinical medicine research from Imperial College London, a master's in public health, and is a registered nutritionist with the Association for Nutrition. She's the author of Every Body Should Know This, a Sunday Times bestseller, and Recipes for a Better Menopause. She's going to join me right now. Welcome to the show, superstar.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so excited to chat. So we hear the term ultra-processed foods constantly, but there's still confusion and, more importantly, misinformation about what they actually do inside the body. So how do ultra-processed foods contribute to inflammation and hormonal disruption and that gut imbalance we're talking about? And why should women think of them as part of their overall toxic load, similar to what we now avoid in clean beauty?
So it's a really good question. It's something we've spent over 18 months looking to answer at Zoe. We've developed something called the processed food risk scale to really separate which of these processed foods are harmful for our health and are causing disruption and which ones are actually less of an issue. So this is a free to access tool in our app. And the way it works is identifying the actual factors about processed foods that are bad for us. So to your point, things like, is it hyperpalatable? So is it going to override your fullness signals and result in you eating way more than you intended? Is the food matrix destroyed? So the energy intake rate, when something is powdered really finely and there's basically not much to chew on, you eat it much more quickly than you would the whole food equivalent. And this then impacts how many calories you eat per minute and essentially whether any of that food actually reaches your colon to feed your gut microbes. And the third thing, which I think a lot of us are aware of, is additives and which additives actually play a part in disrupting our gut microbiome and influencing how inflamed our gut microbiome becomes, and then that then has knock-on effects to the rest of the body. Some additives are okay, not all of them are as bad as each other. So really learning to understand which ones to look out for. And the latest science is telling us more about what happens when you have lots of additives in the same place. We call this the cocktail effect. When you have lots of additives, they all interact with each other, and then that interacts with your gut microbiome. And that's when we start to see like long-term disruption. So a large cohort study recently published a paper last week, actually, that showed us that certain combinations of additives actually increase the risk of type 2 diabetes through gut microbiome disruption. So we have to be mindful of, the simplest way to think about this is whole food first. Where can you buy whole food ingredients as much as possible? And then when you do buy foods that are convenience foods, so they're prepared for us. So for example, you're buying bread for your family because not all.
All right, I'm going to stop you right there because I want to go into exactly that. But the next question is about this. So, but what you said stuck with me because the parallel that you just made is so important because it reinforces that clean is a lifestyle, not a label, right? Like you have to start to change your perception about all of this. And when you talk about misinformation and simple swaps, and I love where you're going with this conversation, I know I am. Women are overwhelmed. Ingredient lists in food, ingredient lists in beauty, and a lot of marketing pretending to be science. So can you go deeper into what are some common ultra processed foods women think are healthy and what are a few simple realistic swaps, you were just getting into it, that can dramatically improve gut and hormone health?
I mean, and I'm so passionate about this then. So
I know you're getting me excited.
The front of pack labeling is a marketing ploy. So just remember when you're going through the food aisles, if something says high in protein, low in fat, like low, only 99 calories, that front of pack labeling is there to make you buy more product. It is not there to protect your health. These are marketing tools. They're not health tools. And that is like, if there's one tip, just anything that shouts on front of pack about being like high in this and low in that is an instant like red flag, right? We need to be so mindful that broccoli and lentils and chickpeas, garbanzo beans, do not have high plant protein on front of pack. They don't have like good source of fiber because they don't need to. And there's not enough marketing dollar to do that because they're not so profitable, right? So these ultra processed foods that are cheap to make, hyper palatable, the protein bars, the sort of ready-made shakes that you find in the fridge aisle that are promised to give you like complete nutrition in a bottle, in a plastic bottle. Those are the things that like are not serving us at all. There's also, cereals that are very low in fiber, and then they'll fortify them with vitamins. So contains all the essential vitamins, but it's packed full of sugar, no fiber, not helpful. So always be mindful of the front of pack claims as a way to understand, are they trying to sell me a product that is actually unhealthy for me? And, so if we think about these big categories, so these kind of ready to drink meals, the snack bars, and things like low-fat yogurts, flavored low-fat yogurts, how can we swap them? Well, it's actually fairly simple. So for the yogurts, you buy natural yogurt and blend your own fruit in, even if it's frozen, it doesn't matter, but that's going to be better for you. If you want to have a snack bar, the high protein snack bar market is insane. Just have a handful of nuts with some seeds. If you want to, you can bring some boiled eggs with you and some carrot sticks. Like, there are simple things you can make at home and bring with you that are going to be so much better for you and can contain way less of the additives and the potential endocrine disruptors that you find in these industrial foods.
And that feels empowering, what you just said, those simple little swaps. It's not restrictive, which is exactly what women need right now. And when you talk about the clean beauty meets the clean nutrition, when we talk about a brand like Crunchy that's EWG verified organic, I mean, the focus is eliminating those endocrine disruptors and unnecessary toxins from skincare. Our skin, is our biggest organ, especially for women and mothers. So from your clinical perspective, how does reducing toxic exposure, both through food, like what we're talking about right now, and through skincare, create a compounding benefit for gut and health and hormones and skin?
It's exactly what you said. These are compounding effects. So every day, the choices we make have a long-term effect. So if you choose a brand like Crunchy, which by the way, I love, so I love that this is who is sponsoring this, and then you switch to their products, every day we wear makeup, every day we use skincare, that accumulative benefit of reducing the exposure on your skin from these endocrine disruptors, over time, it adds up a lot. So you'll feel better, your skin will be better, and you're just reducing the amount of endocrine disruptors and plastics and phthalates that your body has to deal with. And it's the same with food. Like, every day we make food choices. If we choose to reduce these foods in our diet every day, then in the first day or week or month, it might not seem like a lot, but we're drastically changing the amount of challenges that we're basically challenging our body with if we reduce these kinds of chemicals in our skin, on our skin and in our bodies, right? So you want to try and think about this as a compound interest bank account. You put away $1 a day, okay? And it might not seem like a lot, but then in a few years' time, in 10, 20 years' time, that $1 a day is going to make you very wealthy. So it's a small change. It seems like a small change, but it's the compound effect that makes it powerful.
And that really validates why clean beauty isn't vanity. It's preventative health, and it all adds up.
Yes.
It brings me to the next question. So for decades, women's health has been reactive, not proactive, especially around pregnancy and menopause. So how does Zoe's research challenge outdated narratives about women's bodies during pregnancy and menopause, and what should women understand earlier to protect long-term health?
So the crucial point here is that women are not small men. So we need more research looking at women's bodies, physiology, how we work. It is different. So at Zoe, we've done the largest study looking at women in menopause and how their metabolism is impacted, but also what happens when you intervene with a dietary change. How does it change their symptoms and their quality of life? And this is super important because for a long time, menopause was sort of something that you just had to go through and you just felt rubbish and that's just the way it is. And it's not. You can do something about that. You can absolutely change the way you experience the menopause transition. So in our studies, women who started following Zoe advice by using our app reduced, on average, their symptom burden on their quality of life by 38%, which is
significant.
Yeah, it is. It's a huge change. And this is helping women with their anxiety, with their brain fog, with their vasomotor symptoms, so their night sweats and things like that. So it's a really important piece of information. You have the tools with the food you choose to eat. You have the tools to improve that experience. And with pregnancy, we see now that there is so much impact from metabolic dysfunction on fertility and pregnancy outcomes. And we need women to be able to have the agency to get themselves in the best possible metabolic shape, because pregnancy is a metabolic challenge. It's a huge physical and metabolic challenge, and women need to be in their best possible health to face that in a way that's going to actually help them and their baby. So our research has clearly shown this. It's also clearly shown that dietary intervention has a measurable, clinically relevant impact on improving outcomes across the lifespan. So it's really exciting time to be in nutrition science, where we see that these interventions that are centered on gut microbiome health and on improving the quality of the diet and helping people increase their fiber intake has such a profound impact on their health.
And that reframes these stages as powerful transitions, not just problems to fix, which I love.
Absolutely. These we actually call them, so, and I refer to this in my book, they're called windows of opportunity, because at each stage, there's this very clear time when you can have a long-term impact and change quality of life and health, like quite quickly. So within just a few weeks, and for the long term.
That's so empowering. Now I want to talk about cracking the gut code. So Zoe, I've been doing a lot of research on your research, but Zoe's latest work on microbiome clusters is groundbreaking, linking gut patterns to inflammation, cholesterol, and heart health. So what do these microbiome clusters actually reveal about what's living inside us, and how personalized nutrition changes the future of women's health?
So we've now sampled over 300,000 gut microbiomes across the US and the UK. And everybody has a variation of these 100 top microbes that influence health. So these are the key species that we see have an impact on the different health outcomes of interest. Now, within that 100, there are good microbes that when they're present, they're actually helping to achieve better health outcomes. And the bad microbes who, when the good guys are starved, will take their place and essentially promote less healthy outcomes. And the gut clusters are how these groups work together and or compete for space and influence health outcomes across heart health, inflammation. And so this is where we're starting to really be able to map out and score and understand how the gut microbes work together to influence health outcomes. So thanks to the scoring system, we can now say to you, okay, these are the guys in your army. This is how many of the good guys you have, and this is the ones that you're missing, and these are the bad guys. And critically, we've got the data to show what kinds of foods support the good guys and which food the bad guys like. So we can actually personalize dietary advice to help you grow the gut cluster, so the communities and the individual microbes that are going to support your health.
It makes health personal, not prescriptive, because I love the personalization of it all. And so the takeaway for when you talk about the clean collective and the toxic load is when women want clarity, they really want clarity, right? Not just the try to figure it out in between. So clarity is very different than perfection. So if you had to give women 3 evidence-based shifts they could make today across food choices, gut health, and reducing toxic exposure, what would they be?
So the first one would be to focus on the foods that you need to add back to your plate. As women, we're often under the influence of diet culture and we're restricting foods. Think about the foods you need to add back: whole grains, legumes, these fiber-rich nuts and seeds that are going to support your gut health. Omega-3 fatty acids, we hardly get enough of them in our diet as well. And then fruits and vegetables. And that can be fresh, that can be frozen, whatever is accessible to you. But think about adding those new 5 a day to your diet. That's going to transform your health. And the second one is to really try to focus on protein quality. So there's this huge narrative around eating more and more and more protein. But actually, we know now that the protein quality is more important. Most of us get enough protein, but it's where we're getting it from. The amino acid balance that is found in foods that has the most health promoting qualities. These are primarily plant proteins that provide these. And the plant proteins also reduce the chemicals that actually can be disruptive to, especially to our gut health, that we find in meat. So it's important doesn't mean you can't eat meat ever again, or you don't have to go vegan, but really think about how much of the protein you're eating is the higher quality protein for your long-term health. And then if I had to pick just one more, reduce the foods that are packaged in plastic, reduce the foods that are industrially processed and that contain these additives that are known to be less helpful for us and that disrupt the way our metabolism interacts with the food. So these hyperpalatable, high energy intake rate, full of additive foods that you find on the supermarket shelves that often have the front of pack claims, just try and buy less of them. So instead of buying your sugary cereal, try oatmeal and see how you get on with that as a substitute. Instead of the snack bar, prepare a snack at home and take it with you. And just, if you begin with breakfast and choose smarter snacking, you'll be improving more than half of your daily food intake. So just begin with those two and see how you get on and how your energy levels improve.
Well, that's actionable, science-backed, and more importantly, realistic, which is the sweet spot. So thank you for your guidance on that one. Well, we are officially out of time. I can see and sense how passionate you are about this topic. So you are definitely handed the expert on the microphone title for a good reason. You got your work cut out for you, Dr. Amati.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Now, you could follow Dr. Federica Amati at dr.fede.amati on the gram. You can explore her work at federicaamati.com, and you can learn more about personalized gut science at Zoe on the gram and at zoe.com. And this conversation is part of the Clean Collective series, proudly brought to you by Crunchy Clean Beauty that respects women's bodies at every age of life. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Cleanomic. Cleanomic zip bags are certified compostable. They break down into nutrient-rich fertilizer that nourishes the earth. They're BPA-free, so no harmful chemicals leak into your food. Available in snack, sandwich, quart, and gallon sizes. They ship straight to your door. No more store runs. Plus, get free trash bags for life with the subscription. Protect your food and health from hidden microplastic particles by heading to cleanomic.com today.
Welcome back, beautiful New York City, tri-state area, and beyond. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Today, in our Lifted by Science segment, brought to you by CO2 Lift, we're about to dive into one of the most exciting medical-grade skin rejuvenation treatments. It's the CO2 Lift carboxytherapy treatment. It's scientifically driven, non-invasive, a great approach that has clinicians and clients buzzing. The oxygen revolution is here. How CO2 Lift's carboxy treatment is redefining skin health isn't just a catchy title. It reflects real physiology. Carboxytherapy leverages the WOR effect. That's a principle first described in 1904, in which increased carbon dioxide in tissues enhances the release of oxygen from hemoglobin, boosting that circulation, oxygenation, and skin metabolism. And that's the core science behind CO2 Lift and why it's capturing so much attention in both medical and aesthetic circles. Now, helping us explore this science is Kate Cunningham Jeffrey. She's a PA, a board-certified physician's associate with nearly 2 decades of clinical experience. She's the founder and owner of Pretty Please Aesthetics and Injected Training Academy, a Galderma national trainer and key opinion leader for MERS Aesthetics, Hydropeptide, and Aerolace. She specializes in regenerative aesthetics and facial balancing, blending anatomical precision with cutting-edge innovations like CO2 Lift to help clients look and feel their absolute best. Welcome to the show, superstar.
Wow, that's a lot. Thank you.
Well, let's get into it. You're quite impressive with your approach to skincare. And as we know, our skin is the biggest organ. So you've moved from emergency medicine into aesthetic medicine. What sparked that transition, and how was your background? How did your background, in fact, shape the way you approach treatments?
Yeah, I started moving from emergency medicine to aesthetics probably 8 years ago. I was a little burnt out. I think the ER is very hard to do day in and day out, and I was a night shift ERPA. So I didn't love night shift, and I had a bit of PTSD from a bunch of really sad cases that I saw in the ER. So I needed somewhere else to kind of like focus my attention to detail and my love of procedures. So I started looking into aesthetics and just absolutely fell in love with it. So I dove head first.
Yeah, you really did. I mean, that mix of high pressure clinical medicine with that artistic aesthetic vision is kind of unique now. And I think you can feel it when you talk about how you treat someone's face as, both a physician and an artist perspective. So I think your background really just paved the way for you.
Yeah.
So let's break down the science of CO2 lift. What happens at the skin level during a CO2 lift treatment? How does the BOR effect translate into that visible result from hydration to texture and firmness?
It's like 35 to 45 minutes, but the longer the better. And as it's penetrating, it's pumping carbon dioxide into your skin, which changes the way that your skin operates because your body's going to push oxygen to that area. And when it's pushing oxygen, it's allowing for more hydration and more nutrition for your skin. So you're basically rejuvenating and regenerating your skin while applying this mask.
I love how this isn't just a surface level skincare, right? And that mask that you referred to is an actual treatment. It's a treatment over 45 minutes that happens in real time. And when you peel it off, you can actually see the results. I'm a big advocate of this. And so this is physiology at work. When you talk about oxygenation and circulation and cellular stimulation, I mean, it's almost like giving the skin a metabolic reset.
Yeah. And when you pair it with great skincare at home, I mean, you're allowing for those products to penetrate better because your skin is more nourished and more hydrated. So anything you put on after the mask, you're just going to get an amped up result from.
Yeah. So in your experience, what are the most consistent results that you've seen with CO2 lift as a standalone treatment?
As a standalone treatment, the skin looks like it's aging backwards. So if you buy a bundle of CO2 lift, say like do it 7 to 10 days in a row, and then do a monthly maintenance, you will literally notice that skin aging backwards. It'll look more hydrated. I've seen really compelling results from just applying it to the neck. And the neck is such a problem area for almost everybody, where that skin looks tighter, less crepey, less like a vagina. So I just using that mask, like doing nothing else, no treatments, nothing in office. It's a really compelling standalone treatment.
Yeah, no, it 100% is. And that immediate boost in hydration and glow, and then the deeper structural benefits over time, like you mentioned, it really feels like a 1-2 punch. So you often use CO2 lift as part of a multi-modality plan, pairing it with lasers and microneedling or even injectables. How do you decide when to combine it with other treatments, and what does that do for results and recovery?
So we combine it with a lot of treatments. I'm obsessed with it post-procedure for like anything that injures the skin. So like lasers, microneedling, but also post-injectables. It will really calm the skin down and decrease bruising just by improving the oxygen flow to that area. You're just getting more blood flow, which will wash the bruising away. So we use it in a variety of different ways. I got a nose job, a rhinoplasty over the summer, and had wild bruising and swelling. And I applied CO2 lift mask to it. And within 45 minutes, like the bruising was greatly reduced, the redness was greatly reduced, and the swelling was reduced just from bringing blood flow to that area. It was like, I'll just try it. Let's see what it does. Because like, I don't work in surgery.
Right.
And it was amazing.
Wow. Well, you look beautiful and your nose looks great.
Thanks.
What did that teach you about recovery and client expectations and what patients value most when you're on the flip side of things?
Yeah. I mean, the thing that I recognized myself was don't fear it until you know more about it. Because I think my fear was that it was going to be so painful and I was going to be out of work for weeks. But I was back to work 3 days later. 3 days. Like I got it done on Thursday. Oh, yeah. I was back to work Monday. It was kind of amazing. But he put me in a hyperbaric. He had me on antibiotics and steroids. And then I started doing, I had one of my estheticians do lymphatic massage. And yeah, I had a splint on my nose for a couple of days at work, but people know what I do. They're fine.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And the healing was easy. It was not painful. Like even without medicine, it was like a 1 or a 2.
Wow, that's a pretty big endorsement on a pain level.
Yeah.
So you were in good hands. And that personal insight adds a ton of weight because you're not just talking about what you do, you've lived it.
Yeah.
So for someone hearing about all of these modalities, these treatments, pre and post procedure for the first time, maybe overwhelmed by the trends. How would you explain where CO2 Lift fits into a smart, effective aesthetic plan, both from a efficient standpoint and a financial standpoint?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is go in and find a provider that you trust. Do your research, make sure they're credentialed, make sure they know what they're talking about, maybe talk to a friend and see who they see. But once you have a provider that you trust, you have to trust them. And so if you are my client and we're talking about doing, a series of lasers and a series of microneedling, we're going to talk about how we would never put a laser on skin that can't even tolerate being outside. So my goal is to get your skin as healthy and as tuned up as possible before we apply laser or microneedling. Things like neurotoxin can help with that just by softening the expression lines. And then the skincare itself is really, really paramount. We want your skin to be nourished. We want your skin to be as healthy as possible because that decreases complications, and safety is always the number one concern. So I add this in sometimes pre-procedure and sometimes post-procedure. So there's even really compelling evidence that if you apply it for 30 minutes, then take it off and then put their numbing cream on for something like, like Morpheus 8 or like we have Pixel 8, which is RF microneedling, it'll improve the penetration of your lidocaine, so they'll get better anesthesia. But you're also improving blood flow, so the result will be better.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that that's an important note that you just made, because nobody wants to be sold anything. But when you approach this from an educated and from an empowered perspective, and and you understand the science behind why you're using a product and even a service, right? Then you make that informed decision, and it's part of your healing journey or your pre-procedure as well. So it's a great way of framing it, and empowering people to make informed choices instead of chasing the latest buzz is extremely important.
Yeah.
So in the trends that are ahead of us for 2026, there's a lot of innovation from regenerative medicine. We're talking peptides, exosomes, salmon sperm. What are you most excited about? And give me your 5 top recommendations.
I'm always excited for anything regenerative. So I try to go to any conference that'll focus on that and learn from the experts. Peptides have been around for a really long time, but I know they're getting like their moment in the light right now. Personally, I take NAD and I'm obsessed with it. And I'm on a GLP-1, which is also a peptide. I've just microdosed it just for the anti-inflammatory and anti-aging benefits. Your treatments for this year should include some sort of biostimulator, CO2 lift. Of course, I would do a monthly treatment with that. Make sure your skincare is very tuned up, that you have peptides in your skincare, and that you're taking peptides either orally or sub-Q. And stay on top of your neurotoxin. But I think those biostimulators are everything these days.
That was the Lifted by Science segment, brought to you by CO2 Lift. To check out Kate Cunningham, you can go directly on her website at prettypleaseaesthetics.com, or check her out on the gram at pretty.please.aesthetics and at kiss.me.kate. That's KYSSE.me.kate. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by CO2 Lift. As we age, our skin loses moisture and elasticity, causing wrinkled skin. You can reverse this aging process with CO2 Lift. CO2 Lift utilizes the powerful benefits of carbon dioxide to lift, tighten, and regenerate your skin. This simple, painless at-home carboxytherapy treatment is scientifically proven to reverse the aging process. You will see reduction in wrinkles, increase luminosity, and improve pigmentation, sagging, skin tone, and radiance.
For more information or to order CO2 Lift, ask your skincare professional or go to co2lift.com.
My dear friends, we are at the end of our date. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Remember to join me right here on A Moment of Zen every Saturday. You could head directly to amomentofzen.com for live listening links and episode downloads in your city. And also remember that we're live on Traverse TV Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern. That's our over-the-air partner. We're on YouTube Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern, of course, digitally streaming. And all episodes of A Moment of Zen are available directly on our channel at mox.yourhometv.com. That's Family friendly worldwide programming. Thank you for listening to us. It's been an absolute pleasure being your host. Thanks again to all of our partners and sponsors that continue to make this show possible. And remember that happiness is the only thing that multiplies when you share it. We'll be back next week.